So I finally watched F1, the long-awaited Brad Pitt racing movie that's been in works for years. And as someone who lives and breathes Formula One, I went in with excitement, with hope, with an open mind. I've followed the sport my entire life. I know the history, the legends, the drama on and off the track. I'd even go so far as to call myself an F1 nerd, proudly. So the idea of Hollywood finally tackling this world, well, I was pumped. I thought this could be the film that finally captures the magic, the danger, the sheer intensity of Formula One, combining my two loves of movies and Formula One proudly. But here's the truth. What we got instead was an utter disappointment. Before I go into why, let's lay out the basics. F1 was directed by Joseph Kosinski, the man who brought us Top Gun Maverick. It stars Brad Pitt as veteran driver Sonny Hayes, Damson Idris as his rookie teammate Joshua Pierce, and Javier Bardem as his team boss, and Kerry Condon as the engineer caught in the middle. The movie was made with an eye-watering budget of $250 million, with Apple and Jerry Bruckheimer backing it, and Lewis Hamilton, seven-time world champion, co-producing. Pitt himself reportedly pocketed a $30 million salary for the role. It was shot at actual Grand Prix circuits, namely Silverstone, Monza, Spa, Suzuka, and even Las Vegas. And the production team literally built a fictional team, Apex GP. They set up the garages next to real Formula One outfits during race weekends, and they would film in between actual race sessions over the course of a Grand Prix weekend. So yes, that's actually Brad Pitt and Damson Idris standing next to the likes of Max Verstappen and the rest of the F1 drivers while they listen to the national anthem. And on that technical side, I have to say, I have huge respect. The effort here is insane. They built these cars using an F2 chassis, modified them to look like F1 machines, and then let the actual actors drive. They strapped tiny IMAX cameras to the cars, giving us angles no racing movie has ever attempted before. There was no green screen, no heavy CGI. It's all in the camera, practical and real. And I want to give credit where it's due. Visually, this film is stunning. The race shots are spectacular. Seeing Pitt and Idris actually behind the wheel, shot live on real circuits during actual F1 weekends, well, that is something special. And if I judge the film alone on logistics and cinematography, well, it's definitely a triumph. However, like every film, there has to be a story, and that's where everything starts to collapse. Sonny Hayes is written as a legend that never was, a guy who was supposed to be the next big thing, until a horrific crash ended his career. And that crash is based on the real Martin Donnelly's harrowing 1990 accident at the Spanish Grand Prix at Jerez. Pitt even based some mannerisms on Donnelly, who visited the actual set. Now, decades later, Hayes is brought back to help a struggling team, Apex GP, and the mentor, a young rookie. Doesn't that sound exactly like the script from Sylvester Stallone's mess of a film Driven in 2001? On paper, you can see the appeal, a redemption arc, a mentor-student bond, the classic underdog tale. But in execution, it's hammy, it's cliche, and honestly, it feels like something spat out of a Hollywood screenwriting machine. The dialogue is shocking at times, cheesy motivational speeches, one-liners that don't land, melodramatic shouting matches. Formula One is a sport of nuance, strategy, politics, immense pressure, but none of that subtly makes its way into this movie. Instead, we get a 60-year-old man coming back into an F1 car and instantly being competitive. Really? Come on. Even one's suspension of disbelief can only stretch so far. And then there's Brad Pitt himself. Now, don't get me wrong. Pitt is a phenomenal actor. He's been great in countless films, but here he feels checked out, bored even, like he's indulging himself, collecting his $30 million paycheck and living out a midlife fantasy of driving race cars. Rather than Sonny Hayes being a layered, tortured, fascinating character, he just comes across as Pitt, playing Pitt, smirking, coasting, and frankly, just downright annoying. Javier Bardem is completely wasted here as the team owner. After all, Bardem and Pitt are both Oscar winners, but you would never believe that, seeing him in this film. Damson Idris is stuck in such a thin one-note role that he comes across completely unlikable, petulant, and frankly brattish. And Kerry Condon maybe is the only shining light in the cast. She brings some heart and steel as the team's engineer, but even she gets dragged down when the film forces a ridiculous love arc story with Sonny. Why is this necessary? Why did we need that subplot at all? And there's just no chemistry here between Pitt and Condon anyway. It's awkward, unconvincing, and just frankly distracts from what the actual story should be about, which is motor racing. Now let's talk realism, because this is where the movie insults fans like me. There's a big crash sequence at Monza that's meant to be shocking and emotional. Yes, even though it's loosely based on two major crashes, namely Romain Grosjean fireball crash at the Bahrain Grand Prix in 2020, and on a real F3 crash at the same corner. But in the film, the physics are absurd. The car takes off as if it were a plane taking off on a runway. Formula One cars do not behave like that. In fact, they are known to have the opposite aerodynamic effect. The Apex GP cars themselves look slightly off, out of proportion compared to the real F1 machinery. For me, they look like glorified F2 cars. And it just takes you out of the moment. And don't even get me started on the constant cheating Sonny does in the races, cutting corners, blocking dangerously, ignoring penalties, forcibly having his wing taken off. And the movie treats it like he's a rogue hero. In real F1, he'd be banned in 5 minutes flat. At the end of the day, this is cheating. And that's the big frustration here. Formula One doesn't need to be exaggerated. The real sport is already more dramatic, more emotional, and more cinematic than anything a screenwriter could invent. Just look at the 1976 Hunt vs. Lauda season, brilliantly captured in the movie Rush, released in 2013. Or the 2021 Hamilton vs. Verstappen championship, which played out like a Hollywood thriller in real life. F1 is layered, political, dangerous, and very human. But instead of tapping into that truth, this film goes for a far-fetched fantasy about an aging man single-handedly saving a failing team and winning. It's frankly insulting. Now, I don't want to sound like everything was a waste. There are moments that made me smile. The cameos for one. Seeing Toto Wolff, Zach Brown, and Fred Vasseur pop up briefly was fun. Seeing the actual wind tunnel, it was glorious. And once again, I can't say enough about the cinematography. The racing looks fantastic, no question. And for anyone who doesn't know the sport, I get how it might be thrilling, just as a visual ride. But for me, as someone who knows and loves this world, the cracks are just too big. 2.5 hours of bloated, badly paced melodrama, a script that feels like it was written by people who skimmed Wikipedia instead of really understanding F1. Performances that range from wooden to outright embarrassing, and at one point I genuinely felt sorry for Brad Pitt. He's a world-class actor, and he has reduced spouting cliche after cliche, phoning it in while trying to look cool in a race suit. And then of course, as you remember, oh yeah, he made $30 million for this. So instead of having sympathy for Pitt, he's actually a genius, making a lot of money while racing Formula One cars. Joseph Kosinski as a director clearly knows how to film action. Top Gun Maverick proved that. But storytelling, characters, emotional depth, this movie shows he doesn't have it. F1 is all full of flash, but no soul. It's like being served a beautifully plated meal that tastes of cardboard. So here's where I land. I appreciate the insane logistics of filming at live F1 races. I respect the commitment to practical effects and real driving. I even enjoyed the cameos. But none of that saves this movie from being, at its core, a hollow piece of Hollywood marketing. It's 2 hours plus ad for Brad Pitt's ego and Formula One's brand expansion. As a fan, as someone who desperately wanted to see a great F1 movie, I feel let down. This film doesn't represent the sport I love. It doesn't capture its nuance, its history, or its heart. It's surface level, glossy, and shallow. F1 gets a 3 out of 10. Those points are purely for production and effort and visual spectacle. Everything else is a mess. A badly written, badly acted, poorly conceived mess. And that's the tragedy, because Formula One deserves better. Its real stories are richer than fiction. Its legends are bigger than life. And yet here, Hollywood gave us cliches and tropes instead of truth. I'll leave you with this. If you want to see what Formula One cinema can be, watch Rush. Or even better, just watch the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Reality is stranger, more heartbreaking, and more inspiring than this movie ever dared to be. This film deserves to be disqualified. So what did you think of F1 the movie? Do you agree with me, or did you absolutely love it? Please let me know down in the comments, and like and subscribe for some more deep dive reviews.